I think the pension is very important to have in a place. When you retire, you need something to rely on, you know. And if you don't have 401k, I mean, you're going to be really in a fix.
I have 401k, but when I stop working with my employer, they don't give me nothing back, just a little bit.
I'm currently in a 401k. I've been in it for about 10 years. I think there's pros and cons to it. It is a good way to save money that normally you probably would spend. My company gives a $1 match for every dollar that I put in, which is very good. The downside to it, I think, is that the money is sheltered from tax. But when you withdraw the money, which is years later, the tax will be much higher. So the money comes back to the government one way or another. It's not a catch-22 situation, but it does give you opportunity to hold on to money that normally you may not hold on to.
Now I receive a decent pension from the government. I'm, like I say, 100% disabled veteran. I get decent money, and that's pretty safe. Except recently, somebody decided on a witch hunt for so-called fraudulent veterans with post-traumatic stress. And I've had it for a lot of years, and there was a big hoopla, and all these scares went out into the VA hospitals, and had a lot of veterans upset, you know, increasing their stress. And on Veterans Day, as Bush was giving one of his rah-rah speeches with all the soldiers behind him, they had the little flashes that they called this off to make all the veterans feel good. This was on Veterans Day.
There isn't going to be ultimately any such thing as retirement. Retirement really is for people who hate their jobs. Most people who have the opportunity to continue to work will, of necessity and of interest and just to remain active, will continue to work well past the nominal age of retirement. Right at the moment, for people of my age, it's about 67. For people that are coming along, it's going to go up and up and up. Retirement will return eventually to what it always was, in that short period at the end of life when you really aren't capable of doing anything productive. Retirement really is a concept that's quite modern. In other words, 100 years ago, people didn't retire. They simply worked perhaps a little less assiduously, but they continued to work until their time came. And I expect ultimately that except for the very well-to-do and those people who have favorable employment opportunities, contracts, that retirement will disappear.
We simply mean that we're coming from one era into another. That's simply what it means. The industrial era is gone. We're in a different era altogether. Call it the information technology era. But what is coming with it in terms of stocks and shares and in terms of pension benefits is becoming obvious that perhaps in the future even the government cannot guarantee schemes for pensions, and individuals need to begin to think of how to secure their future more than just depend on it. At the moment, it can still live a little bit, but I don't know what will sustain it. I fear that a lot will go wrong with it in the future, but it's not only with the United States of America. Go all over the world, that's happening.
If you could ask President Bush one question, what would it be?
Honestly, I probably wouldn't say anything to him.
I wouldn't want to.
No, I know I'm asking any question.
I would ask him how his family is.
I would say to him, what are you doing here?
What was he doing sitting in the classroom while the Twin Towers were falling down?
What makes him tick? Why is he doing things in the fashion that he's doing it?
When are you going to start doing your job? When are you going to start being the President of the United States instead of the political person that seems to still be running for office, seems still to be trying to embrace the tired policies that got him to where he was?
Really, I would ask him how convinced he is that his policies for now are the right one.
I would ask him what's he going to do for us guys that are just getting home and what's happening with the medical for us.
Why don't you take care of the older disabled veterans from previous wars and previous military service?
How does he expect for us to protect ourselves and our country when we're $1 trillion in debt from this war?
Why did you declare war on Iraq? Why did we have to kill 30,000 or more Iraqis to bring a democracy they probably didn't want in the first place?
Why we can't be, you know, like a friendly nation to the rest of the world.
Why don't you take care of Americans the way you do Iraqis? The Americans meaning just what happened in the South, in Louisiana, the hurricanes, tornadoes.
Why he basically pushed the button way too early.
Maybe I'd ask him about weapons of mass destruction, where he, you know, how come that came about.
Ask him why you don't get the troops out of Iraq.
I might ask him how much, you know, longer he thinks the troops will be in Iraq.
What do you think will happen to Iraq over the next 20 years?
That's hard to say.
I can't answer that question. I really don't know.
We don't know. It all depends on how it ends.
It doesn't look too good.
What destruction?
Whatever we destroy over there, supposedly we're going to go back and rebuild. So right there tells you, it sounds kind of weird. You know, we're going to go over and ruin Iraq, and then we're going to rebuild it.
I think it'll be horrible still. Even with us helping them, I think they'll still be fighting each other.
But it's going to be worse, and it's going to continue to get worse and increase.
It's still going to look like the same place, unfortunately. It's not going to be, you know, Long Island, New York.
We started something. We have to try as best we can is to see peace.
We're doing some good, like bringing children who have, you know, health problems over to the United States for surgery. I think they'll be more westernized.
If Iraq becomes a democracy, which it seems to be headed that way slowly, it'll be better for the world. I don't know. I think it's a good idea. I don't know whether it's worth 3,000 of the young military's lives.
It would be nice to see them take on a more peaceful nation. I don't think that they can't have, you know, their religion as a major part of it, but I think that, you know, the freedom for all people in the country, especially the women.
They will open up their eyes and their opinions of religions, of things around them.
Hopefully the people that are there will have a better quality of life by not being like ruled and demanding and just kind of squashed to do meaningless work and whatever. They have a life. And I think that's a lot of the problem with the Mideast is that these people don't have anything else do except for blow things up because there's no real job fair. There's no, you know, camaraderie between their ranks. It's, you know, kill, kill, kill. No, you know, let's go to work. Let's go work for, you know, GMC.
What I'd like to see is a leader to come up to the plate, you know, a good guy, and take the reins over there. But I still think it's anyone's guess.
It would be nice to see that. I don't know if that's going to happen because, I don't know, just the infighting between their own Muslim population is terrible.
3 separate nations, or an amalgam of 3 separate nations that more or less are autonomous amongst themselves. I don't see any way that, for example, that the difficulties between the Sunni Arabs and the Shiites can be resolved. That schism goes back right at the moment nearly 1,400 years to the very beginnings of Islam, and I don't see any way that it's ever going to be resolved. I think that you're going to see these differences and difficulties prevail more or less unchanged out into the future.
They need to be able to fight each other and say, hey, if we're going to fight, if we want democracy, we got to stand up for our own. And while I was there, we did train soldiers to become, you know, stand up for their own rights. They're afraid. That's what it is. They've been they've had somebody with their thumb on their life their entire time. They don't know what it's like to be free. And when they finally got a taste of it, they're fighting now.
You know, there's certain places where it seems to always be chaos and always something happening.
And we're going to keep losing soldiers, and the Iraqi people are going to continue to get killed. It's chaos, total chaos. It's anarchy. I mean, we're involved in the middle of a civil war there now. I mean, you have a war between all these different factions, and here we are in the middle. And when they call for us to withdraw, oh my God, if we leave, it'll fall. It's going to fall anyway. Sooner or later, it's going to crumble, the whole structure.
But I think it would be, I think it's worth the investment down the road for our children and for the people, for the young people of this country, to see a democracy flourish in the Middle East.
In the next 20 years, democracy in Iraq would have been abolished, and they'd be back to exactly where it started in the beginning.